Welcome back to the cheapest therapy session in town. Thank you very much to Paul Reiki for that review of red tinted glasses, but maybe not so much therapy this weekend, Callum, because finally positive podcasting is about to take place. We have a win to speak about.
I am still delighted, still on top of the world. And I was just saying to you before we started recording, thank goodness it's a win because with a 2-week break and then Celtic on the horizon after, I would not have been happy for the duration of that time. So thank goodness we ended that little barren run. We finally won a game, and I'm delighted. I'm very happy. Glenn, how are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely delighted. For once, I was actually springing my step going into work on a Monday. Because you knew that you weren't going to take a ribbing off any of those plastic Rangers fans that might be in your workplace or anyone that's suddenly taken an interest in our demise in recent weeks. But the feel-good factor continues, Callum, because we've got an exciting raffle on this week's show. We'll keep it open until the Friday before the Celtic game. So you've got this week and next to enter it. We have some seats on our table at the Player of the Year event to raffle off. Hopefully, if we get enough interest, this will be open to 2 people to join us at the Player of the Year event at Tekka, with proceeds, any remaining proceeds being donated to our local charity. More information on that when we get the numbers up. But if you are interested, it will be £20 a ticket, and you can email redtintedglassespodcast@gmail.com for further information, or check out our Twitter page at @RTG_podcast, where we'll put up a post with all that information there for you as well. So a little exciting raffle, Callum, and I think the time's right to get that one out now on the back of a win.
I think so. I can't imagine there would be any rush for neither buyers nor interest had we not have won that game against Motherwell. However, if you need any extra motivation as well as the good cause, getting to go to the event, you'll probably see me dressed up in a suit, which will be a sight to behold, I'm sure. I don't even own one, so maybe a bit of added motivation there for you.
Yeah, exactly. And we all know Aberdonians love a cheap night. A £20 entry into the raffle versus 180 for the seat is a good bargain, and obviously helping out a good local cause as well. But on to the football. And Barry Robson, in his post-match press conference, Callum, said that felt like a proper Aberdeen team. And it's hard to disagree, because it did, especially coming away from that game, buoyed by the performance to an extent. We could kind of see a little bit of identity, but as we said, we've got 3 points to talk about as well. Always makes life a little bit easier.
Absolutely. I mean, that is definitely the main thing. But I left Pittodrie for the first time in a fair while. Absolutely chuffed. As I said, that's not dwindled as of yet. Still plenty of time, mind you, before the Celtic game for that to happen. But no, I was very happy. I mean, Barry Robson'S post-match interviews and pre-match interviews, in fact, have been interesting to say the least. But I did like that particular quote as well, and you felt that sort of buzz around the ground once we started getting going a little bit, and obviously eventually once we got the breakthrough. Thought Red Shed throughout were brilliant, and then South Stand joining in. There was actual cohesion at times. It was fantastic. What's not to love?
Yeah, I know Barry Robson doesn't really interview well, but he gets it and he comes across well. He's, again, maybe similar to previous managers, has the right sound bites, but crucial 3 points as well. I quite liked his comments about Steve Agnew picking up on the atmosphere, which obviously Matty Pollock did as well. We'll come on to his performance in particular a little bit later on. But as always, Calum, we look at the team news for the team that started. Jay Gorter made his Aberdeen debut in place of Joe Lewis, and Liam Scales returned to the starting 11, replacing the suspended Ross McCrory. Of course, Ross had his appeal against his red card against St Mirren turned down, meaning he is now also suspended for the trip to Celtic Park. More on that in next week's episode when we look at our defensive cover going into that game. Just those 2 changes, probably the 2 that we expected, Callum, but one takeaway from that starting lineup was that only 3 of the starting 11 from this weekend's game are contracted to the club going into next season. And of course, we're recording this on Monday night. News broke this afternoon that Hayden Coulson has agreed a new deal with Middlesbrough, maybe putting pay to any hopes that we have of securing his services next season.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations to him.
Yep.
Although, at times he's looked pretty good. At times, probably more often when he's in that wing back role rather than straight up left back. However, due to the inconsistency, perhaps at times, not too fussed about it. I think, regardless, we would have been looking to improve in that area all across the back four, all across the whole park. Actually, now that I think about it. But congratulations to him. Hopefully, he does get his chance, and maybe under Michael Carrick, he can stake claim to a starting spot at Middlesbrough and get them higher up the league, I suppose. But in terms of Aberdeen, obviously we probably expected Liam Scales to come in. Delighted that Super J was able to play, because Joe Lewis has been testing mine and many others' patience, I think, lately, and. He didn't end up having too much to do, but he was a good shit house, and I was just quite happy with it. And we'll come to the bench, I suppose. Now, shall we, Glenn?
Yeah, but I agree. On Jay there, didn't have much to do, so we can't really read too much into his ability, I guess, because Motherwell were that bad that they didn't really test him, and probably feel a bit sorry that he hasn't come away from the game with a clean sheet. But more on that later. As you said, we'll look at the bench where Shaden Morris continues his exile from the matchday squad, but also another omission this week was actually Connor Barron. I'm not sure if there was any word on a reason why he was omitted, but returns to the matchday squad for Jaden Richardson and Dante Polvara. Of course, Robson coming out pre-match saying those players, including Shaden, were going to be afforded a chance in this Aberdeen side. Neither Jaden or Dante got minutes this weekend, but at least they were back involved.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose it is only right that they do get a clean slate under the new manager. I was quite happy that Jaden Richardson was on the bench, given the events that occurred on Wednesday. I felt we could have done with him then. I said that at the time, but he's back. He's involved. He was in the gym, according to his Instagram as well, so that can only be a good thing, I think. But I was particularly shocked by the Barron and also Mislovic exclusions from the squad as well. Not certain as to why that was the case, and also you probably would have fancied both of them to come off the bench with the way events transpired on Saturday as well. Perhaps could replace Clarkson or one of the other centre midfielders. But interesting, and I suppose we'll see what happens with those two in particular. But in terms of Polvara, seeing him involved was quite the shock. Good to see him on the bench. Will he get a chance to now and then this season? Probably not, but we'll see what happens. Barry might shock us at some point.
Yeah, well, of course, he also maybe shocked Alfie Babbage himself by affording the youngster his Aberdeen debut in the closing stages of the match as well. So congratulations to Alfie on making your Aberdeen debut. But yeah, exactly like you said, there may be chances afforded to players if they knuckle down and work hard, even if it is minutes in the closing stages of the game. But it's better than nothing. I'm sure Alfie Babbage won't complain at being able to make his debut already.
Nope, and a little appearance fee as well. I'm sure that won't go amiss.
Yeah, absolutely. But the first half itself, Callum, a really cagey affair, nervy. Both sides struggled certainly in the opening stages, and I think it was really, showed both these teams were going into the game out of form and were desperate not to lose the game.
I think so. I think we did grow into the game, but I think cagey is definitely a good word to describe it for the opening exchanges. Barry obviously came out post-match and said that he wasn't happy with sort of the way we were using the ball, often just sort of basically punting it down the line. And I think there was at least 3 or 4 occasions before we sort of tried to tweak things and calm things down that the ball just went straight out for a goal kick. So I'm glad that was tweaked, but it definitely looked like we were a little bit worried as we sort of tried to suss each other out. And given we were probably, I'm gonna assume teams on the worst form in the league. Certainly Motherwell. I'm not sure if we were quite at that stage yet. But
It must have been knocking on the door.
Yeah, it was telling to start off with, certainly.
But that's what I got to praise Barry Robson and Steve Agnew for, because as you said, and Barry rightly alluded to in his post-match press conferences, that I think Motherwell surprised us in the way that they set up, and our tactics of long balls over the top was just not working. But, unlike Jim Goodwin at times this season, we were quick to think of plan B and change our style. And I thought our use of the ball at stages in that first half was a lot better, miles better than what it was on Wednesday night. We looked more assured in possession, and we were quick in recycling the ball and getting it out to the wide areas and driving at those Motherwell fullbacks. And once we started doing that, we started getting a lot of success. So it was really encouraging to see a change of game plan and maybe game management and man management a lot improved from what we've seen in recent weeks. Especially when you look at the performance of Leighton Clarkson, was one that Barry Robson highlighted as well, kind of being that linchpin in our midfield and getting the balls into that wide area. So, early stages, but positive signs that he has that awareness about him.
Absolutely. And in terms of Leighton Clarkson, for me, probably the best player on the park, the way he can control that. I mean, there's obviously a few other contenders. Not only the goal scorers, but Matty Pollock at the back as well. But the way Clarkson controlled things sort of made things happen for us. And also some of the pressing, particularly him and Ramadani, did, leading it from midfield and starting that. And you saw them often going straight at the goalkeeper, going as far as that. I was very impressed with that. I just thought there seemed to be a bit more about us. The energy certainly seemed to be on the up. Like, not giving a lot of players a lot of time on the ball, making sure you're right in their faces, even if you're not going in to win the ball, putting them under pressure, forcing them to turn back perhaps and start again. That I was particularly impressed with, and it probably is the type of thing you'd expect from a Barry Robson side, given the way he played. But you would have expected it under Jim Goodwin as well. I don't think we got that nearly enough, so it's good to see that perhaps Barry has given them the boot up the arse, or maybe the elbow up the arse, perhaps.
Yeah, or you could also argue that the players are more buying into his methodology rather than his predecessor. But, at times it was a first half to forget. And I just wonder how much of that first half Johnny Hayes has forgotten, because he took a fair clattering in that first half. And I'm sure had Duk not scored from the cross that Johnny Hayes collapsed after, and there would maybe be a lot more question marks around the decision to allow Johnny Hayes to carry on. I know obviously he put a post up on his Instagram thanking the medical staff, the staff at ARI. Obviously he must have gone to hospital at some point on Saturday to get himself checked over, but quite a worrying scene when you saw him down in that manner. To be honest, I was very surprised to see him carry on.
Yeah.
But as you said to me on Saturday night, probably more impressive the cross, because he was probably seeing double of everybody in the box.
Yeah, he had more players to aim at least. So thankfully he picked one of them that was actually there. First of all, I mean, I'll mention it. It was a great ball into the box, and sometimes that Johnny Hayes has lacked that of late. So credit to him for that. Although it is a bit of a concern that he did carry on. However, if there was anyone who's going to get concussed and play on, it was always probably going to be Johnny Hayes. I'm just glad that he did eventually go off, and thankfully it wasn't too long after the initial injury. And good to hear he's okay as well, because I've been a bit critical perhaps Johnny Hayes in recent times, but he showed that fighting spirit and quality as well, even if he shouldn't have shown the fighting spirit and should have just gone off. But we got the opener in a time where I think we absolutely needed it, and delighted Duk's back on the goal trail as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was a right time. But before we speak about that, there was another incident in the first half as well, where Sean Goss clashed. I think was it with Yilba Ramadani?
Yeah.
What did you make of that? Because I think he got booked for that incident, but a lot of people drawing similarities to that and Ross McCrory's red card. But to be honest, I think the decision to book him was right. I think maybe we're just over the top with what happened to Ross McCrory, but you can't compare the two incidents together, because again, if you look at the Ross McCrory incident in isolation and slow it down, there is that obvious movement of the elbow to Charles Dunn's face where, you know, we made the argument about how are players supposed to jump for the ball, how are players supposed to get past. Sean Goss is jumping for the ball. I think it's just one of those incidences. For me, I think a red card in that situation would have been extremely harsh. I mean, although if it had been shown, I wouldn't have been complaining. But I just think that, you know, we're verging on being a bit too paranoid about decisions leveling themselves up.
I just think there needs to be consistency one way or the other. For me, both bookings probably. However, to give one for a red card and one a yellow card, and then also in the Livingston, Joel Newbley connected with an elbow, yellow card. I mean, to be fair, we are the only ones to come out with a red card. However, I just wish there was consistency one way or the other. However, asking for that from SFA officials, barking up the wrong tree on that front. Probably not a red card, but at the time I was going, McCrory was red, get him off. However, you know, probably the right decision ultimately, and thankfully it didn't cost us as well because we still pumped them, so it was fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, Duk back on the goal trail as well, heading home the opener from that Johnny Hayes cross. Big fan of teams leaving Duk unmarked in the box. It's like teams never learn how good his aerial presence actually is. I
know, it seems silly. I think they highlight that on Sports Scene as well. Because he isn't tall, I'm sure, but he's definitely not over 6 foot. I'm not sure how far underneath it is. But he also to leave him spare in that position as well, where, you know, he's got that striker's instinct, absolutely. And it's an easy header, absolutely. But he got to be in the right position, and he was unmarked, which seems stupid. And it's happened a few times. In fact, second header he scored against Motherwell this season. I was focusing on the second chip for Bojan Miovki this season against Motherwell. However, I didn't realise, second header Duk scored against them. So you'd have thought they'd have learned after the first not to give him that sort of time and space in the middle there.
Yeah, good of you to come in with the stats as well. But I think you're also right about the timing as well, because you'd have probably had that kind of uneasy feeling around Pittodrie had we been going in at 0-0 at half time. Not down to the fact that we hadn't been playing well, but more of a case of, you know, we're still not winning. We need to, as you said about playing Celtic a week on Saturday, we almost need that 3 points to help create a bit of momentum, help create a bit of feel-good factor going into that game. And I think that goal just helped ease a lot of nerves and release a lot of tension around the ground. And a bit like what happens when teams score against us, I didn't really feel threatened by Motherwell that they were going to score two to at least win the game. And so it proved. So yeah, timing was crucial, I think, for fans and players alike.
Absolutely, and I think it just makes all the difference mentally, because even though had we gone at 0-0, we've been playing well, the players would have sort of been feeling that too, and there would have been the nervous energy from the fans. And, you know, had it gone another 10-15 minutes in the second half, things maybe would have started to turn a little bit. So it gives them the boost. And in terms of Motherwell, their heads going down, they're thinking, oh, fucking hell, here we go again. And thankfully that was the case. So it was vital to get in ahead at half time. It just eased the nerves, eased the tension a little bit. And thankfully we actually went on and built on it as well.
Yeah, we did, because despite Motherwell ringing the changes at the start of the second half, of course, a few eagle-eyed of you spotted the fact that Motherwell made 6 changes at the weekend. Of course, they were afforded an extra substitution due to the substitution we used for Johnny Hayes being a concussion substitute. So they were allowed 6 subs. But despite the 4 changes I think they made within 3 minutes, we managed to put ourselves 2 in front. Bojan Miovki getting his 15th goal of the season and his first league goal from open play for a very long time. Really important for his own personal confidence, as well as the fans' confidence in giving us that breathing room, as I said.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, he scored that penalty against Mirren obviously scored from open play against Rangers at Ibrox as well. However, I think it is important for him to get back in amongst the goals from open play, certainly. And I think his finish just showed how classy he really can be on his day. In fact, both finishes for the goals certainly showed that as well. But it wasn't only that. I thought his movement, his pressing at times certainly looked a lot better as well. Looked like an improvement. Just that general effort and application from him was certainly improvement, and certainly deserved the goals too. And so enjoyed Ramadani as well. I mean, they brought on Slattery not long before. Instant impact, losing the ball to Ramadani. And Stephen O'Donnell, with some questionable defending, started moving one way, couldn't get his toe out to stop the ball going through to Miovki, and a fantastic finish, it has to be said. But I was also really enjoying the video they put out of that goal, Aberdeen on Twitter, where you see Ramadani yelling at the Dick Donald. I really, really enjoyed that. And I know, it was an all-round good goal, but it only got better later on.
Yeah, I'm really glad you put in the fact that he scored against the Mirror, not like we've just had to cut out about 2 minutes of content because I conveniently forgot all about that goal. And this is why we don't get on Sky Sports News, and we just stick to doing YouTube videos instead. But you're right about Ramadani as well, because I think he was a player that really grew into the game on Saturday. A player who's come in for a lot of criticism in recent weeks, didn't cover himself in glory in the Darvel game in particular. And was suspect at times throughout that bad run of form. But yeah, you're right, that passion he showed in that clip that the club Twitter account put out for the second goal, but even at the first goal as well, he just loves it. Like, he gets the passion from the fans, but which is maybe why a few of us get frustrated when his performance levels dip. I know a few folk have said he's maybe been posted missing or he's slightly overrated. Of course, everyone entitled to their own opinion, but I think we just saw, a bit more of what he can offer this team, and that link up that obviously he does have with Bojan. Of course, the fact that the two played together previously, carrying into this season as well. And yeah, quite ironic that Stephen O'Donnell, who did such a great job of pocketing Jack Grealish, couldn't cope with Bojan and Duk this weekend. I
mean, Bojan retired Christophe Berra earlier in this season. He's now, getting the better of such an experienced and quality international as Stephen O'Donnell. But it was a fantastic finish ultimately. Second time he's chipped Liam Kelly this season. Third time he's tried it, I think, as well. Liam Kelly must be sick of the sight of him by this point.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the first stat you were hoping to get in, but you've of course remembered about the Duk header, so well done on that, slipping that in. And slipping in Bojan Miovki, it was exactly what Leighton Clarkson did. There you go, with an absolutely filthy pass, just like that link was there leading up to this segment. And Leighton Clarkson, as you said, deployed as a number 6 in this game, probably also helping Ramadani's performance as well. But I mean, Leighton Clarkson, we've waxed lyrical over some of the goals he scored, but that assist, but equally the run and finish from Bojan is brilliant. But if you're a Motherwell fan, you'll be pulling your hair out at that defending, but thankfully we're not. So we'll discuss the pass and finish instead.
It was beautiful, wasn't it? Absolutely helped by, I think it was Stephen McGinn being 2 or 3 yards ahead of the other two centre-backs for literally no reason, and then having the cheek to complain at the other centre-backs. However, I think the fact, I thought it was maybe going to be offside, and that's having a good view from the south stand as well, and the fact Motherwell players were claiming for it as well. I think that also highlights how good that movement was from Bojan Miovki, and just the deft little touch past Liam Kelly, just the technique shown, just not too much on it, just enough direction in off the post, made it look even better. And I think this is the type of performances you want to see from Bojan Miovki every single week. And he had a good spell of a decent run earlier in the season. We can get back to that now, having scored 3 in the last 2 games, Glenn. That's 3 in the last 2 games. Of sort of a different variety of the goals as well. Then that could really help us in starting to push up and look up that league table rather than down, which we certainly would have been doing had we not won. But and a special ball from Leighton Clarkson as well. If we can see that more often too, then I would be delighted.
Yeah, and I think, as you highlight there, the types of goals that Bojan scored, especially in this game, given that his previous goals have been penalties, as you kindly reminded me, it just shows, I think, in recent weeks as well, for me, he's been putting in a lot more effort off the ball than what he was maybe doing at the start of the year, where I was certainly kind of questioning some of his work ethic and what he was offering, but there seems to be a much more intensity to his play in terms of trying to chase down the ball when he's out of possession. All positive signs. I mean, he was probably going to have a frustrating week or 90 minutes next time out, but I'm sure he'll take confidence from that if he is afforded any sight of goal.
Certainly hope so. And I think Duk sort of being up there alongside him as well kind of helped things. Sort of maybe gave a dodgy Motherwell defence featuring two fullbacks something a bit more to think about. But Barry Robson mentioned it post-match as well. The sort of direct runs he was making, looking to get in behind, exploit the gaps, certainly seemed to improve, and Barry thought so. So not just us as well, a little bit more of a credible source perhaps. But you can just hope that it's going to be more of the same. And obviously, it's going to be difficult next time out. But in the lead up to the split, we need him and Duk firing, and and just hope that players like Leighton Clarkson can provide the service like that. And you'd hope so with Leighton Clarkson, especially because clearly there's a reason he's on the books at Liverpool. Technically, can be very good. Maybe we've not seen it as much lately. However, again, probably not down to him in particular or alone anyway. So if he can, play some absolutely filthy passes like that between now and the split, then hopefully we'll be in a good spot and have the right men in there to finish them off.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know what was worse at times at the weekend, Motherwell's defending or that kit that they were wearing.
GZ peeps, man. It was awful. When they came out, my dad said to me, you're going to have to speak up because I can't hear you over how loud that kit is. Which, good jibe as it is, even more funnier when you consider he has 2 hearing aids. So just sort of added to it. There was layers to the joke and I enjoyed it from Neil. So fair play, not fair play to Motherwell. That is disgusting. And it sort of reminded me of remember the Mingin Celtic hoop, black and yellow hooped ones? Awful. If your kit's luminous, bin it. It's awful. Don't do it.
Rob Wicks is suddenly scrapping his plans for a luminous third Dons kit for next season.
I mean, a luminous pink one, that would be extravagant and interesting, but certainly luminous yellow, bogging. Absolutely bogging.
Yeah, no. I suppose if you want to be critical, it's just disappointing that we're not sitting here speaking about a clean sheet that I think the defence richly deserved. Unfortunately, once again, VAR getting involved with a decision at the weekend to award Motherwell a penalty. Not that I'm complaining, given the fact that I had Van Veen to score and Matty Pollock to be booked. So a very profitable decision. I have to say, though, at the time, sitting in the red shed, I didn't think it was a penalty at all. I thought it came off his kind of collarbone sort of area. However, looking at one of the replays, I think that's shown from the South Stand RDS camera, I think it's fair to say Matty Kennedy's arm is very much in an unnatural position. But your thoughts, Calum?
It is in an unnatural position, and having seen it in real time from the South Stand, I was like, Jesus Christ, what he's doing? Because it is all the way out here, basically. However, having seen the replays in the VR, it does very much look like it's actually his shoulder rather than his arm, which, naturally when you see someone's arm like that, you probably think, oh God, he's in trouble here. But I actually think it's good defending, had it not been for the fact they got a penalty, because for me, it's not hit his arm, it's hit his shoulder. And I think he indicated that at the time. I think possibly I saw someone saying Kevin Clancy maybe did as well. I didn't notice that personally. But then they go to the VAR monitor and, of course, overturn things when it's not clear and obvious that it's his arm. I don't know.
But then, now that you say that, that does actually remind me, because I think Clancy does award the corner and he says, he taps his shoulder and indicating that's why he's given the corner. Whether or not he's doing that to kind of cover his own back to allow VAR to make the decision. But as you say about clear and obvious, I never really thought of that until you say now. If he thinks it's hit his shoulder, how is it taking him? Because that decision took a long time for him to even go over to the monitor. And it wasn't like he had a quick look at the monitor and went, oh yeah, sorry, I'm wrong, that's a penalty. He was at the monitor for a good minute and a half, maybe even verging on 2. So he must have looked at multiple angles. And yeah, if he was confident in awarding a corner the first time, there's definitely something he's seen to change his decision. But I think the point you make there about it being clear and obvious is a very valid one.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. The fact it was given it as a corner originally, and to me, having seen what I've seen, it looks like it's still his shoulder. I'm still not certain. Maybe it does hit his arm, but to me, it looks like shoulder. The fact he's gone over in there after originally giving it as his shoulder, and for everyone else, it looks like it could still be his shoulder, to then change it, maybe suggests that it's the fact he's been asked to go over and he's thinking, oh God, I've got to go over. I better change it then. Clearly I've made a mistake. And maybe he's not backed himself, which I wouldn't be surprised given, many a performance I've seen from him before, and nothing changed after Saturday. Terrible referees in Scotland. Nothing new there.
No, exactly. But a big fan of the shithousery that we seem to implement on the back of that. Of course, Matty Pollock squaring up to somebody, I'm not sure who, which obviously resulted in him getting a booking. Duk seemed to be trying to do his best to scuff the penalty spot. Lot of shithousery in play. But I felt a bit sorry for Jay Gorter, of course, as we mentioned. Not really tested, yet doesn't keep a clean sheet due to the penalty. But when you've got a bet of Duk, Miovki, Van Veen to score and Pollock to be carded, I wasn't complaining. But what I was a big fan of when it came to Jay Gorter was how invested he seemed to be already, because he was given an absolute laldy when Miovki scored the second. A few people have likened his celebration to Joe Hart celebrating Aguero's winner against QPR. And even when the stand up for the Aberdeen chant was getting sung in the second half, he was have his hands like trying to encourage as many people to stand up as well. So seems to be loving life at Aberdeen already at this early stage.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been able to tell absolutely nothing about his goalkeeping ability after that game, because I don't. That was their only shot on target, I'm pretty sure, was the penalty. And it's a lottery at that point. He clearly doesn't know much about Kevin Van Veen, so he probably can't base anything off any research. Had to guess, went the wrong way.
Yeah.
Other than that, had nothing to do. But the points you mentioned there, absolutely loved it. Seems like a bit of a head case. And people always say you've got to be mental to be a goalkeeper. Yeah, seems to be the case, and I quite like him for it. In fact, no, I would go far to say I love him. However, that might change if he decides to chuck one into his net at Celtic Park. We'll soon see. But it wasn't just that as well. The rolling of the ball to waste time with about 12 minutes to go, forcing the Motherwell player to come close him down. Thoroughly enjoyed that. One thing was a concern was in the first half, Shinnie ended up putting out for a throw-in, and Gorter could have definitely came out and got it, but it's probably trying to understand Graham Shinnie, and also, I don't know, communication, understanding. I'm sure that'll get better between now and the end of the season, and we'll see what he's really made of.
Yeah, I remember that incident. Now you mention it, I think, like you said, just a little bit of lack of communication, but at least Shinnie showed that leadership and just hoofed it into Rose Ed instead of just left it for Gorter to go and get, and the Motherwell striker sneaks in and maybe puts it in the back of the net. So good to see the players actually taking ownership if someone else isn't doing as expected. But obviously we haven't seen much from Jay Gorter, but we've seen 2 appearances for both Angus MacDonald and Matty Pollock, and Pollock looks like a right catch, I think it's fair to say.
That was good. I'm waiting for more later on. We'll see how you go. Absolutely. He does look like a right catch. I'm not going to try and force any to get him, mainly because I can't think of any. I'm glad we signed for him. Glad he signed for Aberdeen. Looks like he's in the right place.
Yeah, well, alongside Liam Scales, as I said, our defence could have been a bit fishy, but it's looking a lot more solid. And it's fair to say he's got a leap like a salmon on him as well, because he was very unlucky not to score in the first half. I think there was one cleared off the line by a Motherwell knee, and he also put one just past the far post. But then, of course, in the second half, he does have a goal ruled out, and some say he might still be celebrating up alongside the south stand as well. It took him a long time to realise that goal was disallowed, but a really assured performance that we're picking the bones out of.
Oh, that was very good. God, I wish that goal stood. Anyone?
We're tuning off rapidly.
I know. I'm sorry. Please like and subscribe.
Tide is turning, some may say.
Oh, stop it. Right, we need to stop this. He played well, and I thought he played quite well against Mirren. He's probably more noticeable in what he does, given he's just fucking huge than Angus MacDonald. But Angus MacDonald, I thought, also did pretty well again, and that'll only get better the more they play together. However, obviously things will change going into the Celtic game with the defence. But impressed. I'm very, very impressed. I don't know how that goal's not stood, because they are both at it. And I just feel really sorry for him, because he was absolutely loving it, going mental. And then after it was disallowed, I thought maybe he's still celebrating because he thinks it's going to stand. Nope, didn't stand. Don't I have a clue why that, or why the check was so quick, if there is one, or maybe Clancy blew the whistle before it hit the back of the net. I don't know. But it was made even worse by the fact Matty Kennedy took the piss out of him afterwards. Once he eventually got back alongside him, Matty Kennedy was like, yeah, having a go at him, basically ripping the piss out of him, which is a shame, because I'd love to have scored, and I can't wait to see him score a goal that actually is going to stand, because he will go mental once again, and hopefully it's next week, but can't see that happening.
Yeah, no, that would be...
definitely not next week, because there's no fucking game next week. Never mind.
No, well, I knew you meant a week on Saturday, but I've got one more. It's good to see that despite casting our net far and wide in the transfer market, we come up good, still staying relatively close to home in the UK as well. But I think you're right. He stands out in that defence, not only with the fact he wears his bright yellow boots as well, but what I've also liked from what we've seen of him is that he's played in two different positions, a centre back and then at right back. Whether or not right back's a more natural position for him or not, but he's looked comfortable in both those positions. I think you're absolutely right. He's going to be a lot more tested when we take the trip to Parkhead in a few weeks' time, as will Angus MacDonald as well, who's looked really assured. And I think both their communication, one thing that I noticed from MacDonald in particular was the way he was kind of ushering the defence out, and he was always, checking his shoulder, checking around him where his teammates are. There seems to be a better communication, a better understanding, and I feel a lot more confident in this defence already than what we previously had.
I mean, I'm sure there will be boo-boos. I'm sure there absolutely will be to come. However, so far, so good, and I am impressed. And I'm sure Angus MacDonald's probably playing with a point to prove as well. He's come up here, leaving England, I think, for the first time in terms of his playing career, obviously, and getting a 6-month deal here. He'll be presumably desperate to make it work and get that extended. So if he can put that into his performances, then I'm absolutely all for it. But he certainly seems the quieter of the two. I just think because, when Pollock's going in and winning those headers, he is absolutely battering into people. And I just think MacDonald goes about his business a little bit more quietly. But assured, I would describe him as.
Yeah, exactly. And you say you're loving Jay Gorter. I saw your tweet from your own account about falling in love with loan players in regards to Matty Pollock and his comments in the article that Robbie Hanratty did in the Daily Record about the atmosphere and the fans and the backing that the fans gave the team on Saturday as well. It's a dangerous game, and you just need to look at the starting 11, how many players we do have on loan this season. It's a dangerous game, falling in love with loan players.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. However, not one you can ever do much about. And Pollock carries on like this and he maybe does grab a goal or two between the end of the season and goes as mental as he did for the one that was disallowed against Motherwell, then we could be in trouble. But he's saying he feels loved here, so you never know. He might be here next season. Who knows? But there's a long way to go. A lot of stuff to work out between now and then, I think.
Yeah, he could be the big fish in the small pond of Aberdeen.
Fuck off, Glen.
Now, moving quickly on then, one swallow doesn't make a summer. Calum, yes, it was a vital, much needed 3 points, but with Celtic next, it was really the bare minimum that we needed from this weekend, but crucial to get that bit of confidence, bit of momentum, and maybe for Barry Robson and Steve Agnew, buys them that bit of time in terms of winning that game between now and appointing a new manager.
Yeah, I think so. I think it does exactly that. Because, had we suffered 2 defeats in a row, and especially one of them to Motherwell, then panic stations and looking down the bottom league, worrying about potentially slipping further down and maybe getting relegated, who knows. The worries have been eased, thankfully, and I've been impressed so far with Barry Robson. I don't think him on a permanent would be the best option yet. He's still very young, still a lot to learn. However, I'm happy for him to sort of see things out a little bit longer to make sure we do get that next appointment correct. And I've seen a few people saying on social media that they'd like him to be involved in the first team, even under the new management. I would absolutely be all for that. And I think him being there also kind of, maybe bridges the gap between, for example, if it is a foreign manager, especially coming in, or even if it was, for example, Chris Wilder, he knows what it's about. He's clearly quite a good coach, and I think that would just certainly help things and also be beneficial for him because the way things are going, and he just is a likable guy. It would be nice for him to be manager one day. I just think the experience of him being involved in the first team, making that step up as well, could help. But I mean, we will see, and we'll see what Dave's got up his sleeve, because it honestly could be anything at this point. Jesse March, perhaps.
Yeah, well, there is that American connection, I suppose, but interesting to see what develops between now and the game against Celtic. If the search for a manager kind of steps up with us not having a game, or they allow Barry Robson and Steve Agnew to really get to work with the squad to come up with a game plan to try and take points off Celtic. Of course, Celtic unbeaten at home in over 2 years, so a real tough task for whoever's in the dugout for that game. But we will have a full preview of that game on next week's show. There's no point in delving into that just now, especially with Celtic in Scottish Cup action this weekend. And we've given ourselves some extra days on the training ground, but no need to go back on that. But one thing I suppose Cam will quickly look at is that the gap between us and Livingston in fourth, obviously Livingston occupying the last European space, is it just 3 points separate 4 teams, albeit the Lions do have that game in hand as well. But that run between now and the split, obviously 8 games to go. 4 of those games are at home, including games against Hearts and Rangers. So potentially tough home games. And then away games, both Dundee United and Ross County, of course, who are scrapping for survival. But we actually play the bottom 3 in those 8 games, well, the current bottom 3. So there is potential there for this team to pick up points and get us into that top 6 before the split. And I guess with that win at the weekend, that has to be first and foremost. The aim for Robson and Agnew is to get us into the top 6 and then build on that. Would you think that's what they'd be looking at just now? Obviously, with us sitting 7th just now.
I think so. I mean, getting into the top 6 even before the split gets the end is probably number 1 priority, because they do want to chase European football. I think so long as we are in there, come the split, then anything's possible after that. But we do need to make the most of the games we have against teams currently in the bottom 6. I think it's not ideal that we've got to play Rangers and Hearts. However, the fact it's at Pittodrie, will help things, certainly. I think it gives us a better chance, given how we've performed up here against Rangers compared to Ibrox, and likewise Hearts here compared to at Tynecastle. So I don't know if confident is the word I would use, but optimistic. And I think the game against Celtic, avoiding an absolute pasting would be a start. And from then on, we'll see. And, we might learn a thing or two about this team now and about Barry Robson, Steve Agnew as well. But who knows what's going to happen. I'm going to try not to think about it until the time comes before we sit down and record, because I don't want to ruin my good mood and my good high spirits that I'm currently in after that win. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, the last game before the split is that home game against Rangers. And just looking at the fixtures going into that weekend in particular, St Johnstone host Hibs, Dundee United play Livingston, and St Mirren at home to Kilmarnock. Of course, Kilmarnock with that terrible away record, and St Mirren with that impressive home record themselves. So lots of points to play for, of course, between now and then, but certainly bubbling away nicely in that little glob that we've got in the race for fourth, I suppose. But of course, as Calum says, we won't go too much into that because we don't want to ruin the good mood. We want to revel in that much needed 3 points from the weekend. So thank you very much to everyone that has tuned in, whether it be on video or audio this week. Of course, if you are tuning in over on the YouTube channel, remember to leave that like, comment below with your thoughts, and hit the subscribe button if you are new to the channel. And hit that subscribe button if you are new on audio or have not done so already. Remember, of course, we have the Player of the Year competition running until Friday before Celtic. £20 entry. Email redtintedglassespodcast@gmail.com for further information. Until next time, though, Calum, it's been a pleasure. It has been a pleasure. But if you want to see me manage Aberdeen on Football Manager potentially, head over to my Twitch. Keep an eye on my Twitter @CalumWright2, because I'll be posting about it there and seeing if I can do a better job than Jim Goodwin. No promises, but thanks for tuning in. Get your CV put in. Exactly, might need to. I mean, if Yogi Hughes has fucking done it, then maybe I could. No.